Coming up on Network Africa. The United Nations says a full-scale humanitarian situation is unfolding in Ethiopia with the Tigrayan crisis. Ghana's anti-corruption special prosecutor Martin Amidu resigns over alleged government interference. Plus, Amnesty International calls for the immediate release of Côte d'Ivoire's opposition candidate Pascal Affi N'Guessan and others who were arrested. Thank you for joining us on the program today. Welcome. I'm Layo Adegoke. The United Nations says the two-week-long conflict in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region is developing into a full-scale humanitarian crisis. At least 27,000 people have so far fled the neighboring Sudan, and the United Nations says its team there are overwhelmed. Now, fighting broke out after Ethiopia's government accused the Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF, which controls Tigray, of treason, whereas the TPLF sees the federal government as illegitimate. Spokesperson Stefan Dujarric of the United Nations adds that the UN is alarmed by the escalating conflict.
Refugees who are now arriving at the pace of 4,000 per day are coming out of Ethiopia really scared, afraid, with the stories saying that they have been fleeing heavy fighting, and there's no sign of the fighting to stop right now. So the fear is, as the fighting continues, we could see more refugees arriving. The number of 27,000 or more than that is what we have registered. It could reach 30,000 and beyond. The UN Refugee Agency is warning that a full-scale humanitarian crisis is unfolding as thousands of refugees flee ongoing fighting in Ethiopia's Tigray region each day to seek safety in eastern Sudan. This is an influx unseen over the last 2 decades in this part of Sudan.
We fear, not least based on the movement of people out of the country, that there may be massive displacement inside Tigray. So that is, of course, a concern, and we try to prepare the best way possible. We are in continuous contact at relevant levels, both with the federal government and the relevant regional authorities.
Meanwhile, Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed says that his country is ready to receive and reintegrate thousands of refugees fleeing the northern state of Tigray, where federal troops are fighting the local forces. The Prime Minister vows to protect their property and guarantee their peace upon return. He also promises to enable humanitarian support by the military. However, it's not clear how that can be achieved amid the escalating conflict. Last week, the government rejected calls for mediation, saying that would encourage impunity. In the meantime, the government's Tigray Crisis Task Force is asking the people to give them more time, saying this will be a short-lived operation. Redwan Hussein, spokesperson for the government's Tigray Crisis Task Force, added that with this fight, the people of Tigray will understand its reasons for doing all of this.
We are saying give us time, because it's not going to take entirety. It wouldn't last to eternity. It's very much short, would be a short-lived operation, whereby the people of Tigray would understand that this culprit had been doing nothing good to Tigray. They've been living their posh life. None of their children are in Ethiopia. Most of them are in Europe and America. They are being paid in one of the Ivy League universities. So their children would not fight this fight. And then you know the conscripts. under 17.
Well, let's get more on this story from an African affairs analyst, Dr. Okwi Okpala, joining us on the program. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Now, thousands of people are fleeing the Tigray region over government's military offensive there, yet the government says there is no room for dialogue. What do you think? Isn't this an abuse of power or military might, perhaps?
Responsible leaders don't take the decision to go to war lightly because of these devastating consequences to the people, to the environment, to the economy. And one should expect that the Prime Minister, being a Nobel Prize winner, a Nobel Prize for Peace winner, will exercise extra caution in engaging in armed conflict. In this case, there are opportunities for negotiation, opportunities for mediation, opportunities to call these people and try to resolve the differences and try to assuage their feelings and try to address their concerns. But I think the people of the Tigray region have been in center of influence and power for over 30 years. And they are one of the most powerful and influential regions in Ethiopia. One begins to think that probably the Prime Minister wants to neutralize their influence, and that's why he has not tallied enough. He has not tried enough to follow other paths other than that path of armed conflict.
And now, this conflict has displaced many people. Thousands are flooding into Sudan, which shows that this conflict will definitely have a huge impact on Ethiopia's neighbors. Now, what role do you think the African Union and regional powers play in this matter? Incidentally, the African Union is headquartered in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia.
Responsible leaders of the region and African Union should quickly put mechanisms in place to mediate and intervene in this conflict, which has potential to destabilize the whole of Africa, the whole of East Africa, and even beyond. I know that even international players should also quickly find a way to bring the warring parties to the negotiation table. I know that the American election and its fallout is sucking a lot of oxygen from the world. It's sucking a lot of oxygen that, the tensions are diverted from other pressing issues in the world. However, we in Africa should know that this has a potential to displace so many people, internally displaced people, refugees to neighboring countries. There is tendency for it to draw other powers, regional powers, into that conflict. The Eritreas of this world, the Somalia, Djibouti, even Sudan. Already refugees are in Sudan. Eritrea is already mobilizing soldiers around their border with Tigray. So it's important that this conflict is stopped from going further before it becomes even the Gulf powers in the Gulf area and the Middle East can be drawn into this conflict.
Finally, Dr. Okwi, just before I let you go, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed won a Nobel Peace Prize for pursuit of domestic reforms and his efforts to achieve peace and cooperation with, neighboring Eritrea. But unfortunately, he seems not to be able to achieve peace at home. What do you think this says about his image as a peacemaker?
Of course, His reputation as a peacemaker is at stake. As somebody who has won praises and accolades and even have received Nobel Prize for Peace for his efforts at bringing peace and reconciliation between Eritrea and Ethiopia, for all his effort in improving economy, one should expect that when there is internal disagreement with a key region within Ethiopia, that it will also bring to bear that is acknowledged ability to negotiate and pursue peace. But in this case, I fear it has not been so. He appears to be too eager to engage in armed conflict, engage in war, and by doing so, history may eventually remember him as somebody who brought civil war to Ethiopia and who probably destabilized, whose eagerness to engage in armed conflict has destabilized that region of Africa.
All right, then. Thank you so much, Dr. Okwi Okwala, African Affairs Analyst there, speaking to us on the situation in Eritrea. Moving on to Ghana, the anti-corruption special prosecutor, Martin Amidu, has resigned. He says his mandate and efforts had been compromised. Now, in a statement announcing his resignation, the former Attorney General cited a lack of independence and freedom to execute his mandate, accusing President Akufo-Addo of interference. Mr. Amidu claims that some staff members at his office, including himself, had not been paid salaries since their appointment. He was appointed in 2018 by the president, and his designation was greeted with great expectation in the country. He had previously cited a lack of cooperation from other state agencies and attempts to compromise his staff who were pursuing corruption claims against public officials. Well, Joy News TV correspondent Winston Amoa joins us now on the program for more on this story. Thank you, Winston, for speaking to us. How are Ghanaians reacting to Martin Amidu's resignation?
Well, so Ghanaians have been shocked, many of them surprised that the special prosecutor, who, until Monday, was actually responding to lots of concerns about the fight against corruption. They had actually written a report, indicating that Shard got it wrong when it comes to, some alleged funds in the personal account of the Public Procurement Authority CEO, who's been sacked by the president. And so it came to Ghanaians as a surprise that, on Monday afternoon, Mr. Martin Amidu tendered in his resignation as a special prosecutor.
Mr. Amidu cites a lack of independence and freedom to execute his mandate, and he's also accusing President Akufo-Addo of interference. What has been the president's response to this?
Well, so the president hasn't responded yet. What our sources tell us is that there's been drafting of a response by the Deputy Attorney General, and he sent it to the Jubilee House as a seat of the presidency. And once the president approves it, it will be released to all of us. But as we speak currently, we don't have an official response from the presidency.
Talk about Mr. Amidu's legacy now. He's been in office since 2018. What would you say he has achieved in his last 2 years?
Well, so Mr. Martin Amidu, yes, has been in office for about 32 months, but here's a man who's had several issues. Now, Mr. Martin Amidu, over the past more than 2.5 years that he's been in office, hasn't been able to secure conviction for anybody. Yes, we know that he was investigating, he was prosecuting the Member of Parliament for Baku Central, Bahama Yerga, over his acquisition of some vehicles which he said had perceived corruption in there, or alleged corruption in there. But apart from that, Mr. Martin Amidu has had lots of cases referred to him. But the challenge with Martin Amidu is that he's always complained about the lack of resources, about compromised stuff here and there. And so for many Ghanaians, it looked more of a man who was appointed into office and complained more than he acted. For many Ghanaians, they asked questions about what he had done over the past 2 years, because for them, Martin Amidu was probably writing more than he was performing as a special prosecutor. So when it comes to his achievement over the past 2 years, you would say that, but for the Ejapa mineral royalty transaction agreement that he reviewed, when it comes to the corruption risk assessment, which got a lot of us talking, really Martin Amidu didn't really do much as was expected of him by Ghanaians.
Then thank you so much, Winston Amua, Joy News TV correspondent, for those updates. Welcome back to the program. Amnesty International has called for the immediate release of Ivorian opposition leader Pascal Affi N'Guessan and others who were arrested after the Constitutional Court confirmed President Alassane Ouattara's re-election. Mr. N'Guessan is facing charges of terrorism and sedition after rejecting President Ouattara's controversial third-term victory and announcing the establishment of a parallel government. President Ouattara last week held talks with his main rival, Henry Konan Bédié, in the commercial hub of Abidjan to make peace following the disputed election. Now, after the meeting, the opposition said no dialogue would proceed unless all those arrested over the election protests are freed. Well, South Sudan's President Salva Kiir is expected to close this year's National Dialogue Conference that recommended a two-term presidential limit. The 15-day conference was boycotted by First Vice President Riek Machar and other key opposition figures. Dr. Machar cited reservations due to lack of implementation of some provisions of the 2018 revitalized peace agreement. The national dialogue was aimed at discussing solutions to end political and communal violence in the country. Now, the United States transition of presidential power is yet to take place following Joe Biden's election win. Incumbent President Donald Trump is yet to concede, and this is stalling and hampering the political process. Now, some Nigerians in America are concerned about the political challenges this poses. Our Washington, D.C. correspondent Maria Bird has more.
The U.S. election ended more than 10 days ago, and the president of the U.S. has yet to concede, despite the election results that project Joe Biden as the next president of the U.S. Most recently, President Trump tweeted he won because the election was rigged, and later tweeting, "I concede nothing." Nigerians in the U.S. called to question this type of response from an American president.
I think what is happening right now with the U.S. elections is an anathema to democracy. We had an election. Mr. Biden and Ms. Harris, they were able to garner 306 electoral votes. Donald Trump was supposed to just go on national TV, address the nation, and gracefully concede the election. Instead, what we have had is an effort to basically just discredit the concept of U.S. democracy itself. The electoral system that we are talking about is very secure. In fact, the Department of Homeland Security has already rated it the most secure election in history. Sena heads to prevail. We need to return to sanity. And we need to stop this rape mockery. It is time that President Biden is allowed to start running a non-inclusive transition process, which will involve current officials of the U.S. government.
A week after the election has been called, the current president refused to concede or acknowledge that he has lost the election. So it's a very tumultuous period right now, and we just hope this will be over sooner rather than later. From a Nigerian American point of view, I think that the Trump administration has not been a friend of the immigrant community like myself. He has been extremely hostile to us, and I would give this administration a 5. The relationship has not been great.
While the U.S. is still in the midst of lawsuits regarding election practices, the president of Nigerians and the diaspora organization, the Americas, has hope for Africa-U.S. relations within the projected Biden-Harris administration.
Yes, the Nigerians in Diaspora organization is very happy and glad with the outcome of the recently concluded U.S. presidential election. Nigerians in the community work tirelessly with other African nations in the U.S. community to elect the next president of the United States. We are willing, ready, and we're happy, to work with the next administration to put in measures that will positively affect Nigerians and the entire African community in the United States, as well as continuing to contribute to the growth and sustainability of the American economy. Yeah, looking at your question.
Even though President Trump holds on to the possibility for a second term, many Nigerians in the U.S. are beginning to plan for the future, with Joe Biden as the U.S. president-elect. From Washington, Maria Bird, Channel Television News.
A Nigerian travel entrepreneur, Funmi Oyatogun, has created a themed guessing game called Fill in the Blank in celebration of the Black race. Her 300-card deck is aimed at educating people on Black culture, people, places, and preserving the history of the African race.
You don't have a television, you have it in your car.
Travel entrepreneur Funmi Oyatogun had a light bulb moment when she came up with a way for groups of people to have fun while celebrating Black culture. The card-based guessing game is called Fill in the Black and contains facts about iconic people, places, pop culture, and miscellaneous words that have impacted the lives of Africans or people of African descent around the world. Oyatogun, who created the game that targets homes during the pandemic, said it has transcended to an effective learning tool for many people.
I realized that it was an opportunity for us to create this game that helped people play with each other, with their families, but also incorporated the need for Black stories to be told. It was also during the pandemic that we had so many movements going on with people just, demanding for their existence to be recognized. People started to get a bit more conscious and a bit more vocal about telling Black stories.
She launched the game in August, a month after Nigeria began easing its lockdown restrictions due to the global coronavirus pandemic. The 28-year-old had initially created a 2,000-card deck, thematically cutting across various Black cultures, but streamlined them after a virtual gaming survey to 300 relatable words.
We try to make sure that everybody felt represented, everybody felt seen. As a Nigerian, you can play this game and feel, oh, I see Nigeria represented here. But you also see America represented, and somebody in the Caribbean also sees Caribbean references, and we also see worldwide references that cut across, place and space.
All right, this one, they shot us at the Lekki toll gate.
Oyatogun has distributed over 1,000 decks in Nigeria, United Kingdom, Canada, and the United States of America. Creative manager Orafiri Adoki, who was part of the virtual gaming survey, says the game brings people together.
I played it with my friends, brought us together. A lot of arguments sometimes get heated, and I don't usually like playing games, but this game was the one to play because it's about culture, it's about, the things that you know, and the things that you've also learned and heard about, and things that you've probably experienced as well, so it's been amazing.
The deck card sells between $18 to $25 in various parts of the world. Oyatogun also plans to launch multilingual Black-themed cards in coming months.
And that's it on the program for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Adegoke.